our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men. We choose to go to the moon.
In Alabama, only 18% of 8th graders are proficient in math. And next door in Mississippi, it's only 14%. And it's not just southern states. New Jersey, 40%. Connecticut, 35%. New York, 30%. Arizona, 26%. And in California, just 24% of 8th graders are proficient in math. When 8th graders across the country were tested for reading, most scored between 20 and 35% of grade level. The worst scores for reading are in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital.
Today, the new international reading, math, and science scores were released, and Chinese students left American teens in the dust in all three categories.
Nearly 500,000 15-year-olds from all over the world took the test. The top 5 scores in math: Shanghai, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan. And way down the list in 30th, the U.S. In science, again Shanghai, China at the top, then Finland, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Japan. And down at 20th, the U.S. And in reading, Shanghai, China again, and the others. And down at 17th, the U.S.
They're a little too general sometimes. I think they're very wordy, and at the same time they cover a lot. So they're like a mile wide and an inch deep. And so it's not something that I like personally, but it is something that currently we have to follow.
Honestly, I don't really like that.
Why?
Well, here's the thing. I feel standardized testing is easier to grade, and it's easier for states to get, grants and everything, but it doesn't really display the student's understanding of the subject. I mean, you can get an A on a test, but God knows you don't understand it.
Well, if we're all meant to follow the same standard, everyone's going to learn the same, and really, where's the diversity in that?
I believe Miss Jefferson when she took me into the office and said that my exams would be imperative to my success. Because we was taught to always follow when Miss Jefferson led. But then I took Jefferson out of the equation and learned to think for myself. I realized we was taught to always follow when Miss led. Huh, the irony. We all have different abilities, thought processes, experiences and genes. So why is a class full of individuals tested by the same means? So does that mean Sherelle thinks she's dumb because she couldn't do a couple of sums? And if this issue is not addressed properly, it then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then every school has the audacity to have a policy on equality. Huh, the irony.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think for a second that the standards they have here are even close to college standards.
I think the standards haven't prepared me as well as the individual and, I guess, personal efforts of teachers to better prepare me. For example, Mr. Gundez, I don't know, like, he does much more than is required of him as a teacher. And because of that, I'm much more prepared than I would have been if I were just being taught strictly state standards. So I guess teachers are the reason that I'm as prepared for higher education as I am now.
The standards that I've met in, say, like my AP courses, yes, but the regular general ed courses I've taken, no.
At least for science, at least for chemistry, they are students will know, students will know, students will know, students will know. I don't think that's the kind of skill students need to move on, to be able to regurgitate information. It's not about that. It's about, it should be students can apply, students can synthesize, students can articulate. So that's why I think they're not preparing students.
Students, how many equations, subjects and dates did you memorize just before an exam never to use again? How many A grades did you get which were never asked for when you applied for a job? How many times have you remembered something 5 minutes just after the teacher said stop writing, only to receive your results 1 month later to realize that you were only 1 mark short of the top grade? Does that mean remembering 5 minutes earlier would have made you more qualified for a particular job? Well, on the application form it would have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For instance, chemistry class just the other day.
Yes, quite often.
You mean I don't already? I guess you could say yeah. Just print, like, just pumping out like a essay just last minute just for credit.
Now let's look at the statistics. Steve Jobs, net worth, 7 billion, RIP. Richard Branson, net worth, 4.2 billion. Oprah Winfrey, net worth, 2.7 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, Henry Ford, Steven Spielberg, Bill Gates. Now here comes the coup de grace. Looking at these individuals, what's your conclusion? Neither of them, in being successful, ever graduated from a higher learning institution.
Yes, I do, because I think with grades and test scores you get into college, and that's something that helps determine your future.
I would say it aids. Not having that doesn't keep you from succeeding in life, but I think it does definitely help. Like, for example, you can get, with these good test scores, good essays, and good, GPA and stuff, you can get into a good university, which would definitely open some doors for you. But if you don't, that doesn't necessarily hinder your success. It could put you in a position to help yourself.
I think it depends on the student. It all boils down to the student. I think that the instructor, if the instructor, and I hope that the instructor is capable and doing his or her job properly, if the student is not willing to put time and effort, if the student is not willing to study, the students are not willing to embrace their education, then you could be the greatest teacher and nothing's gonna happen. So I think it boils down to responsibility and accountability on the teacher's behalf and on the student's behalf, and on the parents as well. The parents play a large role. I think the responsibility is equal on all three people.
As long as you follow the rules and pass the exams, you're cool. But are you aware that examiners have a checklist? And if your answer is something outside of the box, the automatic response is a cross. And then they claim that school expands your horizons and your visions. Well, tell that to Malcolm X, who dropped out of school and is well renowned for what he learned in a prison. Redefine how you view education. Understand its true meaning. Education is not just about regurgitating facts from a book on someone else's opinion on a subject to pass an exam.
The key to solving all of these problems rests on solving one thing first: education. And the stakes are higher than we think. Here is Miss Robinson. She has 32 students in her class. These kids are the future of our country. But in order to reach their full potential, they need a great education. In America right now, a kid drops out of high school every 26 seconds. That's 3 by the end of this video, and 1.2 million a year. These dropouts are 8 times more likely to go to prison, 50% less likely to vote, more likely to need social welfare assistance, not eligible for 90% of new jobs, are being paid 40 cents to the dollar earned by a college graduate, and continuing the cycle of poverty. This is a frightening picture, but it doesn't have to be. When we change the odds, here's what it looks like. How do we ensure that teachers like Miss Robinson help her students succeed? A solution is possible, and it doesn't just rest on her shoulders. Now that you know what's at stake, what will you do?
Go off on kids, because they don't freaking get this crap. If you would just get up and teach them instead of handing them a freaking packet, yo. There's kids in here who don't learn like that. They need to learn face to face. Or you're just getting mad because I'm pointing out the obvious and you just... No, I'm not wasting your time. I'm telling you what you need to do. You want kids to come into your class, you want them to get excited for this, you gotta come in here, you gotta make them excited. You want a kid to change and start doing better, you gotta touch his freaking heart. Can't expect a kid to change if all you do is just tell him. You gotta take this job serious. This is the future of this nation. And when you come in here, like you did last time, and make a statement about, oh, this is my paycheck, indeed it is. But this is my country's future and my education.
I respect that. Can you go outside, please?
But there's a limit. When I'm not bitching, but simply making an observation.
Okay.
And now I will leave. You're welcome.